Welcome once again to Let's Talk Marriage. This is Pastor Larry coming to you this Wednesday afternoon with Let's Talk Marriage. All right. We're going to get right on into our program this morning. Today on this program, we're going to be talking about a subject that we've talked about several times on the program. What we're going to be talking about is going to be talking about peace in the home. That's a real good topic, peace in the home. There's so many families that don't get along, or should be peace in the family or peace in the home. So many families that don't get along. There's a lot of bickering and argument, and people are just not getting along. People haven't seen relatives in years, because people are holding grudges and things of that nature. We're talking about, but we're going to be talking about within a marriage, because life is too short to be always arguing and bickering about things. Find things that that's why we mention a lot of times on the program that you should be taking vacations and have several outings within your marriage. That way, you will have something to talk about other than just arguing and causing confusion in the home. And sometimes when we get in these arguments, we say things we don't mean, and things that things just get out of hand. And by all means, if you're in a relationship where there's something physical going on, you need to get out of that relationship. Find a way out of it, and pray about it. Find a way to get out of it. But if this, is just regular bickering and just not getting along, to make sure that we are listening. And that's another thing that we discussed on the program several times about listening. When you're listening, you don't have the opportunity to argue because you're listening. When you're listening, you're not talking, and when you're talking, you're out talking someone, or when you're arguing, you're trying to overshadow someone or out talk them or over talk them. And when you're over talking someone, you're not listening to them, and they're not listening to you because they're going to be trying to over talk you. And that's another way of arguments get started. And a lot of times arguments, especially between husband and wives, a lot of times they get started on Sunday morning. They say, remember the trick of the devil. But a lot of times arguments get started on Sunday mornings. And, and you get to church and, you can't get into the service because you just had an argument with your spouse. So you want to make sure that we are not getting into those arguments. Try something new. If you and your spouse always arguing, try something new. Try listening to each other. And sometimes when people say things, they mean it at that moment, but it's not really meant. They just meant it at the moment because they were in the heat of an argument. Because when you're in an argument, you always want to be one up on somebody. So that's the thing that you try to avoid. Take a deep breath before you start an argument, or before if someone if your spouse says something that's offensive to you. Take a deep breath before you respond. Because the way you respond can lengthen that saying that offended you. It could make it worse, and then you both start saying things to offend each other, and that's not having a healthy relationship. In a healthy relationship, you want to listen to each other, and a lot of times, especially as men, we don't want to listen to our wives. Sometimes our wives don't want to listen to our husbands. Because a lot of times, we mentioned on the program before that a lot of times our wives they say things to help or enhance the relationship. And sometimes we as men, our egos get in the way, and I'm the man, you don't tell me what to do. Everybody has someone that they have to report to. So that's, if you work a job, even if you own your own business, there's someone you got to report to. You got to report to Uncle Sam. You got to report to IRS. You got to report to someone. You got to make a report to someone. So we can't say that, I'm my own boss. Yeah, okay. You got to report to someone. And and our kids see that too as well. If they see that mom and dad is always arguing, guess what? They're going to be arguing with their friends. They're not going to get along with their friends. They're going to be arguing with their teachers. Matter of fact, what they'll do is they'll be arguing with anyone that they feel is an authoritative figure. They're not going to be able to get along with that person. You have to watch how our demeanors are. If you walking around always mean and always got something negative to say, that rubs off on your kids. That rubs off on infants because they'll start crying a lot if they feel the negativity coming from you. They'll start crying a lot, and if they're adolescents or toddlers, then they'll start reacting things out, and we wonder why our kids are acting or behaving a certain way. When they go out to the stores, they might have a meltdown because they see it in the home. They see the parents having a meltdown, and the father just blows his top, or the mom just blows the top and just start throwing things. You don't want to get to that point because it leads to other things, and you want to avoid that. And if you can't get along with your spouse, you love her, you both know that you love each other, but it just seems like you just can't get along. There's nothing wrong with seeking counseling or have a mediator. Sit down, just talk it out. And when I say having a mediator, that's not the opportunity for you to have open offending people. Where you get the forms. I can't wait to get in there, so I can really tell you without you talking. That's not what that's for. It's for you to solve your grievances by simply talking it out, listening to each other. It's not the opportunity for you to go back and forth offending each other because you're just having an organized argument. That's all that is, and that's not the purpose of that. The purpose of it is to bring you closer together, and by bringing you closer together, you'll be able to have a healthy relationship or healthy marriage. And that's what it's all about. Again, we've mentioned on the program several times that our churches are based on families in the church. If you have a complete family, you can start a church with a couple of complete families, that's in your church. And a lot of times we go to separate churches because of, disagreements, but we have to make sure that we are working these disagreements out and, and sitting down and listening and talking to each other without tempers flaring and things like that. And don't be offensive to your wife, or husbands or wives, don't be offensive to your husband. Don't, just insult him for things. And, because he said something last week, you want to get back at him. You don't want to do things like that. You don't want to hold grudges, withholding from him and, withholding him from relationships or from relations. You don't want to get in anything like that because you're outside of the Word of God, and you want to, you have to wives be subjective to their husbands. It does not mean that the husband is going to be overbearing and always a tyrant. That's not what that means. This means you're working together, and and many times we've heard people say, "Oh, behind every good man there's a good woman. Beside every good man there's a good woman." Because whenever you see someone that's a good person or a good man, they usually have a spouse that hangs in there with them and uplifts them, encourages them, and they encourage each other. And it shows in them being a good person, a giving person. Because, yeah, a lot of times we hear another phrase that opposites attract. And opposites attract because you have to have a balance. When you have something that's balanced, it's going to be two different things that's going to be in the mix to balance something. Because if you have one, it's not going to be balanced. It's just going to be all. But you have two parts that make a whole, and that's what it is when you become married in a relationship. You're two people, but you are a whole. You become one as a whole. So we have to limit those arguments and those confrontations, and stop, being one of those people that's always confrontation. You're waiting for something to happen. You know, and again, our children pick up on, because they're like sponges. They pick up everything and they repeat everything, especially when they're small. Even when they're older too, they repeat what they hear. As soon as they get in an argument with one of their friends, they're gonna say some stuff that they heard mama say to daddy or daddy say to mom. They're gonna say the same thing. And when they get of age and start getting in their relationships and seeing their little friends, and you don't want them to be confrontational and always how they used to say, keeping up mess. Always the ones that's starting arguments and having things that are happening, always going on, always drama. You don't want to be one of those people that's always got dramas, or have that marriage there's always a whole bunch of drama in there, and you get loud, neighbors running over trying to figure out why y'all so loud in there, because you're in there arguing. That affects everyone in the household. That affects your children. That affects your job. That affects your relationship with God. That affects your relationship with your church. When you have been in those serious arguments and you go to church, you can't receive anything from the word because you're feeling bad, or you're feeling like you was mistreated. So you go to church and neither one of you can't get in the service, or one stays at home. Those things can't be avoided by simply listening to each other and sitting down and talking. And when you're talking about a subject, the time that you talk about it is not the time when right or during an argument. You don't try to discuss nothing. You cool off first, and then you bring up that subject. And don't bring the subject up in a manner where you're overbearing or trying to get the best of the other person. Or win the argument. There's no such thing as winning the argument. It's not a debate in a marriage. Marriage is not a debate. Marriage is communication. Marriage is love. Marriage is holding on to, or being, having each other's back, or stepping up for each other, or being there for each other. So we have to make sure that we watch, because you have to watch what you do, watch what you say around your children. And again, it doesn't matter how old they are, how young they are, or how old they are. We have to watch what we say around our children, because they watch our relationships. They look at what mom is saying to dad, how dad treats mom. They look at that. So we want to make sure that we are doing the best and being the best wife and the best husbands that we can be. And by being the best husband you can be, it starts out by listening. That's the same thing as when you're a Christian, or when you saved, or going to church, or have a relationship with God. It starts with listening. Don't just be listeners of the word. When you hear the word of God, you listen to it and you put it into action. And that's what you do when you're in a marriage. You listen to your spouse. And, when she's talking, she has legitimate concerns. So we have to make sure that we're listening to our spouses. And sometimes it's the hardest things for us men with our, especially us men with the egos, the macho men. Things that life is too short for all this not getting along. That's why I always say make sure you take a trip, go somewhere, because then that way when you have something to talk about, you have those lasting memories that you can share and talk about, and good times here. When you have arguments, you don't have arguments about bad times. You don't have conversations about something bad that happened all the time. Have those conversations about those lasting memories when you went on vacation, your honeymoon, when you took a trip to see someone, visit a relative. It doesn't have to be a fancy outing. It could just be a regular outing. It could be a date night or something. So you want to make sure that we are getting along in our relationships, because again, relationships and families are the backbone of our churches. And when you have a healthy relationship at home, you can have a healthy relationship on your job, because it does affect you when you having those bad days at home, and then you go to work and somebody say something that your husband might have said or your spouse might have said, and it just triggers that attitude again. So this is Pastor Wilson. We're going to be signing off, and we're talking about avoiding those disagreements. There's nothing wrong with having a disagreement, but how you handle it, avoiding those arguments. This is Pastor Larry. Until we meet again, we want to take the opportunity to invite you out to our services at New Zion Christian Center. We're located at 15014 Plain Street in Plainfield, Illinois. Services begin Sunday morning at 11 a.m. This is Pastor Larry. We will see you there. Oh, hey, I forgot to say, if you woke up this morning, you are doing great. All right, till we meet again.